Hi everyone, in this review we are going to look at Urban Decay's new Naked Cherry collection. This has just launched on Sephora's website, so you can purchase through there. I'll put a link in the description box below to where you can find these items in this collection if you do want to purchase, as well as a link to eBay so that you can get cash back on any online order. You can also purchase directly through Urban Decay's website if you prefer that. Oh, and just to clarify, this has launched on Urban Decay's website, but if you want to wait to purchase it through Sephora, it launches on October 5th. So in this video, we are going to look at and swatch the Naked Cherry eyeshadow palette and the highlight and blush palette. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't checked out the swatch video for Urban Decay's Elements palette, I will link that in the upper right hand corner for you to check out also. Alright, let's get looking at and swatching the shades for the Urban Decay Naked Cherry eyeshadow and highlight and blush palette. So let's start with the highlight and blush palette. This retails for $34. The description says the Sweet and Tart trio includes one highlighter, a universally flattering blush, and a super sophisticated iridescent complexion topper that can be worn solo or as a shimmering overlay to add the ultimate luminous glow. Now, of course, you can use these separately or mix them together. In terms of the packaging, it is made of thick, heavy, durable cardboard. It has a magnetic closure with a full-sized mirror inside. Here are the shades that we will be swatching. I will swatch them left to right, and then I will do a swatch with all of the shades mixed together. All right, and as always, I'm swatching with a powder brush. So the highlighting shade is this really soft gold. Now I'm swatching the blush, which is a medium mauve shade. And then that all over shimmering kind of powder. It's very interesting. Once you're actually applying it to the skin, most of these shimmering flakes go away, and it seems more like just a very translucent, frosty shade. Okay, so here's what we have just with one layer of each color. The highlighting shade comes out nicely. It's really buttery and smooth, although it is kind of dusty in the sense that it kicks up a lot of powder. The formula itself is not dry or dusty. That middle shade is a nice translucent flush with one layer. On the cheeks, I think that would show up really nicely, but I'm going to build it up so you can see what intensity we can get with another layer. And then this, hopefully you can see the effect. It is sort of a luminizing, brightening effect. If you looked up really super close, you could see little specks. I'm not sure how that would translate. I think in the sunlight you would definitely see these little specks of shimmer, so I don't know that you would want to put this all over the face. I think that would look really strange, but maybe in artificial light inside you could get away with this being a brightening kind of shade. Okay, so here's another layer of that highlighter, not that you really need it. Here is layer 2, building up that blush color. And here's a second layer of the brightening powder slash potential highlight. Then at the end here, I will do a swatch with all the shades mixed together. Let's see what kind of color we get. And for good measure, a second layer of that. So in terms of shade and formula, I think this is a good trio, but I wanted to show you the practical problem you're going to run into using this palette. These two shimmering shades on the ends are very powdery. They kick up a lot of dust. So you're going to get that transferred into the middle shade, which is supposed to be a matte shade. You're going to have to dust that off. Doing the swatches, I had to swipe them multiple times to make sure I was getting just the blush shade in there. So if you're looking to have a truly matte blush and not have the highlighter go over into it, this is not going to be the most straightforward or easiest palette to use. Just keep that in mind. And then in terms of the swatches, there's your highlighter with 2 layers applied. Your beautiful blush shade with 2 layers. that setting, luminizing type of powder with 2 layers. And all of the shades mixed together, which I think also makes a beautiful highlighting shade. And next we will swatch the shades in the Naked Cherry eyeshadow palette. This retails for $49. The description says, "This is our wildest way yet to look better naked. Naked Cherry eyeshadow palette has a sexy vibe that's more tart than sweet. With 12 never-before-seen picked neutrals, this vamped-up cherry-hued palette is sure to bring out your sultriest, most tempting eye looks ever." And in terms of the packaging, you have a palette that is made of mostly plastic. There's a row of cherries on the surface of this palette, which I think is very cute. This palette also closes through a magnetic closure. You get a dual-ended brush there and a full-size mirror inside. This is a decent brush. It is in the same cherry color as the rest of the palette. On one end you get a domed, fluffy blending type of brush, and on the other one you get a stiffer, shorter blending, buffing type of brush. And we love it when our shade names are on the palette itself. As always, I will swatch these with an eyeshadow brush and over eyeshadow primer, going from left to right. So we start with Hot Spot, which is a matte ivory. Caution, which is a matte, soft, neutral beige. Bang Bang is a shimmering pink with a gold shift and iridescent micro sparkle. Feels is a matte, soft, dusty rose. Juicy is a matte, soft, warm peach. Turn On is a metallic, pale rose. Ambitious is a metallic rose copper. Bing is a matte deep mauve. Devilish is a matte reddish plum. Young Love is a metallic cranberry. Drunk Dial is a deep metallic burgundy. And Privacy is a matte, deep brownish plum. Okay, here are your 12 shades from the Naked Cherry palette. Up close, starting from the last shade. So let's start with the negatives, because I don't think there actually are very many. These two matte shades were just slightly chalky. The other matte shades were beautiful and creamy and silky. These two were just a little bit less of those good things, but I think that practically when you're putting them through the crease, especially with a fluffy brush, you won't notice too much of a difference. This last shade was creamier and silkier in texture. It does apply in the swatch a little bit patchy, but again, I think that practically speaking, with a fluffy brush, you won't have any problems. I really don't have any criticisms of these metallic shades. They are all buttery smooth and applied very, very nicely. My favorite part of this palette starts kind of in this range here. I think that these two metallic shades are absolutely stunning, and these two matte shades are super high quality. So for the Naked Cherry eyeshadow palette, I think this is a very nice showing from Urban Decay. I think this is a solid palette. Of course, you have to be someone that wants or is looking for a palette that leans very much pink and purple. There is nothing in this palette for someone who just wants a completely neutral, quote unquote, natural, everyday look. Every single shade in this palette, with the exception of the very, very ends of the palette, which are used to ground the look. So the very last deep dark brown matte shade and the very first two pale matte shades, with the exception of those, everything else has a very noticeable, distinct pink or purple tone to it. And that can be pretty tricky because purples especially can very easily make the eye area look bruised. But what I find interesting about the shades in this palette are that they, for the most part, avoid that kind of hue to them. You may run into a bit of danger with the shades like Young Love, Drunk Dial, and maybe even a little bit of Devilish, those three shades, because those are the most spot on kind of reddish purpley colors. But the rest of the shades have a balance of something like a peach tone to them, or a more brown tone to them, or a more champagne-y tone to them, to avoid that really bruised, tired eye looking kind of effect. So I think this is a beautiful shade coming from someone who really doesn't usually do purple-based or a lot of pink-based colors. This is a palette that I'm really excited to be using and making different eye looks out of. So that is the Naked Cherry collection from Urban Decay. Please let me know in the comment section below what you think of either of the products. I am curious to see what your thoughts are on this collection and in particular on the eyeshadow palette. I hope this video was helpful if you were curious. As always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch, and I'll see you in the next video.